Have you ever stood in front of someone who tried to drag you into their chaos, raising their voice, twisting words, feeding off your reaction? Most people fall for it. They match fire with fire and call it strength. But the Stoics knew better. True power is colder, quieter, untouchable. So, what happens when you refuse to be moved? Stay with me. Let's find out. As we step into the first chapter, imagine this. Someone raises their voice at you, their words sharp, their tone trembling with anger. You feel the pull, that magnetic urge to react, to defend, to prove them wrong. It's almost instinctive, isn't it? Your pulse quickens, your chest tightens. You want to meet their chaos with your own. But in that moment, something crucial is being tested. Not your intelligence, not your strength, but your mastery over yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Most people read that as poetry. The Stoic reads it as a command, because every conflict, every emotional trap begins here, when you abandon reason to serve your ego. And that is exactly what emotional people want. They don't need to be right. They just need you to lose control. When you do, they win. Think about it. The loudest person in the room rarely holds the most power. They just hold the least discipline. They throw words like stones, hoping one will break your composure. They exaggerate, guilt trip, cry, accuse. Their only strategy is chaos. And the moment you answer on their terms, shouting, defending, explaining, you've entered their arena. You're no longer solving anything. You're performing for their emotions. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I worked with someone who thrived on conflict. Every meeting turned into a battlefield. One afternoon, he exploded over a minor mistake, slamming his hand on the table, daring me to react. I felt the heat rise in my chest. The old version of me would have snapped back. But that day, something inside me whispered, "Don't mirror the madness." So I paused. I let him finish. I didn't match his tone, didn't defend myself. I just observed. Within minutes, his fury collapsed under its own weight. His outburst looked small, and I saw it clearly. Calm wasn't weakness. It was dominance in silence. That's when I understood what the Stoics meant by observation. It isn't detachment, it's strategic awareness. When someone lashes out, they reveal everything, their fears, their insecurities, their illusions of control. By staying calm, you're not ignoring them. You're studying them. You're gathering truth while they waste energy. Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is often more hurtful than the injury that provokes it." The same is true for every emotion thrown your way. Their rage is their weakness. Your stillness is your advantage. This doesn't mean you suppress what you feel. It means you govern it. You let your emotions pass through you like a wave that doesn't drown you. You look at it, name it, but you don't serve it. The Stoics compared the mind to a fortress. Open gates invite invasion. Closed gates preserve peace. So when the world tests you with drama, the real question is, are your gates guarded, or do you let every emotion walk in? Calm isn't natural. It's trained. It's built through small acts of restraint. The moment you don't reply to provocation, the breath you take before reacting, the silence you hold when insulted. Every time you choose not to mirror someone's chaos, you are strengthening your command. You are teaching your mind that not every fire deserves fuel. One day, someone will test you again, maybe with anger, maybe with tears, maybe with blame. They'll wait for your reaction to validate their drama. And when you give them nothing, when you simply observe with quiet certainty, they'll realize something powerful. They can't reach you anymore. You've stepped beyond their emotional reach. So the next time someone explodes, stay grounded. Let the noise lose its echo around your calm. Control doesn't shout, it simply endures. And from that stillness, a new form of power begins to rise, not over them, but within you. Let's move into it. Moving into the second chapter, picture yourself standing in the middle of an argument where words have turned into weapons. Accusations fly like arrows, half of them missing the truth, but still cutting deep. You feel that sting, the unfairness, the urge to defend, to explain, to make them see reason. But here's the secret the Stoics mastered. When emotion rises, reason drowns. The one who survives is the one who can separate what happened from how it feels. This is the moment to draw a line between fact and feeling. Because emotional people mix them until both lose meaning. They speak not to understand, but to offload their chaos onto you. And if you're not careful, you'll start confusing their storm with your reality. Epictetus warned, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That is the compass. Every time you feel pulled into their noise, remind yourself there's the event, and then there's your interpretation. The first, you cannot change. The second is entirely yours. I once watched a friend lose himself over a lie told about him. It wasn't just the lie that hurt. It was the injustice, the helplessness of not being able to prove the truth. For weeks, he raged, argued, tried to convince people who had already made up their minds. He believed his anger was noble. It wasn't. It was slavery. When he finally stopped fighting to be understood and started focusing on what he could control, his work, his composure, his silence, everything shifted. The lie faded. His calm made the noise look childish. That's when I understood. Clarity is stronger than defense. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Most people never learn this. They treat every emotional attack like a battle they must win, instead of a mirror they must look into. But when you train your mind to separate the story from the facts, you reclaim your peace. You realize that what others say or do cannot harm your reason unless you grant them entry. And the more you practice this separation, the lighter you become. Think of it this way. When someone shouts at you in anger, what are the facts? Someone raised their voice. Air vibrated. Words were spoken. Everything else, offense, insult, judgment, comes from interpretation. That's where most people bleed. Not from what was said, but from what they told themselves it meant. The Stoic doesn't let imagination rule perception. He strips the moment bare. He sees only what is, and that's why nothing shakes him for long. There's a strange kind of freedom in not taking things personally. It doesn't mean you're cold or indifferent. It means you've chosen not to let someone else's chaos define your inner weather. When they accuse you unjustly, you don't rush to defend yourself. You know your truth, and that's enough. When they twist your words, you let the distortion reveal their character, not yours. In a world addicted to emotional reaction, restraint is revolutionary. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." When someone provokes you with emotion, see it as your training ground. Each confrontation is a lesson in separating illusion from reality, impulse from wisdom. You'll begin to notice how quickly emotional people collapse when you stop feeding them attention. They need your reaction like fire needs oxygen. Remove it, and their power dies quietly. So when the next storm comes, don't rush to interpret. Don't race to respond. Just observe. Write the facts in your mind. This was said. This was done. Nothing more. Because the moment you name things simply, without judgment, their weight disappears. And what's left is something rare, clarity, the kind that cuts through manipulation like sunlight through fog. Remember this: those who master their perception cannot be manipulated. The world will still test you, emotions will still knock at your door, but you'll know better than to invite them in. You'll see things as they are, not as they seem, and in that truth, you'll find a calm no one can take away. From here, silence stops being retreat. It becomes strategy, and that's where we go next. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine a moment when silence becomes heavier than words. Someone is shouting, accusing, demanding a reaction. Their voice echoes in the room like a storm trapped within four walls, desperate to pull you in. Every instinct inside you screams to answer, to correct, to fight. But what if instead of speaking you stayed still? What if you let silence do the work your anger could never accomplish? This is where the true discipline of Stoicism reveals itself, in the ability to hold your tongue when ego begs to speak. The untrained mind thinks silence means defeat. The trained mind knows silence is command. Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit it." That's the truth most people never learn. They react because they fear being misunderstood. They argue because they cannot bear the sound of someone else's noise filling the space. But the Stoic sees the game clearly. Emotional people feed on your reaction. Take that away, and they starve. I once witnessed a man destroy his own authority by speaking too soon. During a heated meeting, a colleague accused him of incompetence in front of everyone. His face burned red. His voice trembled as he rushed to defend himself. The more he spoke, the smaller he appeared. His words turned into proof of guilt for those eager to doubt him. Across the table sat another man, silent, still, unshaken. He didn't interrupt. He didn't retaliate. He simply waited. When he finally spoke, it was brief, calm, and devastatingly clear. One sentence dismantled an entire argument. Everyone remembered that silence more than any speech. That day taught me that calmness commands the room long before words ever do. Silence isn't emptiness. It's pressure. It makes others sit with their own noise. It reflects their behavior back to them, like a mirror they can't look away from. People who manipulate emotions expect resistance. It confirms they have control, but silence breaks their rhythm. It exposes their dependence on your response. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." When you stay calm, you force emotional people to confront themselves. Their frustration grows, their certainty cracks, and in that stillness, their own words betray them. There is a power that comes from being able to wait, from allowing the fire to burn out before you step forward. In a world addicted to instant reaction, patience feels like rebellion. But every time you resist the urge to explain, to justify, to argue, you rise above the chaos that consumes everyone else. You begin to notice how silence disarms arrogance, confuses aggression, and turns manipulation into self-exposure. It's not submission, it's control in its purest form. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." To remain silent when provoked requires courage, the kind that comes from trusting your composure more than your pride. Most people fear silence because it forces them to feel, but the Stoic embraces it because it turns reaction into reflection. It reminds you that you don't need to attend every argument you're invited to, so when they raise their voice, lower yours. When they rush to prove, you pause. When they drown in emotion, you breathe. Let them wrestle with the emptiness your calm creates. Because the one who can remain silent in noise has already mastered the battlefield. And when you've learned to use silence as your shield, another test begins. The art of timing, the sacred pause before reaction. That's where we go next. From here we enter the quietest yet most dangerous territory, the space between what happens and how you respond. It's a breath, barely a second, but that small distance decides whether you remain calm or collapse into chaos. Picture it. Someone insults you, challenges your dignity, throws bait coated with arrogance. Your blood heats. Your jaw tightens, every cell demands reaction, but in that suspended instant, before words escape, a question forms. Who's really in control here, you or the storm inside you? This is the battlefield most people never see, the space within the pause. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is endurable, endure it. If it is not, stop complaining. Either way, stop." What he meant was this: life gives you seconds to choose your state of mind before the moment consumes you. Those seconds are gold. The pause isn't weakness, it's command. It's where the untrained man reacts and the disciplined one reclaims authority. I remember once being in a conversation that turned sharp without warning. A friend, frustrated with his own failure, redirected his bitterness toward me. His tone grew cold, his words like small blades meant to wound without drawing blood. In the past, I would have struck back, trying to balance the scales. But that day, I caught the flame before it spread. I took one breath. Two. I looked at him, not with anger, but with clarity. The pause dissolved the tension. He saw himself reflected in my stillness and fell silent. That was the day I learned that timing is the truest form of control. The Stoics practiced this pause like soldiers sharpening their swords. They called it mastery of impulse, to delay reaction until reason takes command. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." To delay means to take back time from emotion. It means letting the wave pass before you decide whether to swim or step aside. That's not suppression, it's strategy. Because once the surge of emotion fades, truth stands clear. You begin to see that no one can truly provoke you without your permission. Think of the pause as armor. It's invisible, silent, but it saves you more than any defense ever could. When you master the pause, you stop being predictable. Emotional people can no longer read you, manipulate you, or draw you into their chaos. They throw words expecting reaction, and you give them stillness. They push, and you don't move. Soon, they realize they've lost control over what matters most, your attention. There's a certain dignity that comes with patience. It isn't passive. It's the deliberate choice to let reason lead. When you pause before replying, you teach your nervous system peace. You train your mind to see through illusion. You give yourself the gift of distance, not to avoid life, but to engage it on your own terms. Every pause you take plants discipline where impulse once ruled. It's the practice of turning chaos into clarity, one breath at a time. The truth is, emotional people expect explosions. They know the patterns. They rely on speed, reaction, and confusion. But when you slow the rhythm, you change the entire game. You stop playing theirs. And in that silence they face something terrifying, their own reflection without an opponent. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That mastery begins with the pause, with the courage to do nothing when every part of you wants to do something. The world belongs to those who can wait that extra second, because within that second lies power, perspective, and peace. So the next time life provokes you, don't rush to respond. Step into the pause. Let it stretch until emotion loses its grip. Because in that stillness, you're not avoiding the battle, you've already won it. And once you understand that, the next lesson becomes clear. Power isn't in reaction, it's in redirection. That's where we move next. Now imagine this. You're standing in front of someone who has built their entire identity on emotion. They cry, complain, twist words, and throw accusations just to see you flinch. They don't seek understanding, they seek control. And the moment you react, you hand it to them. This is where most people lose, not in the argument, but in the reaction itself. Yet a Stoic learns to win differently. Not by resisting harder, but by redirecting the entire game. Here's where wisdom becomes strategy. You don't argue with emotion, you guide it. You acknowledge without absorbing. You see the fire, but you don't step into it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best answer to anger is silence." But silence doesn't always mean the absence of speech. Sometimes it's the presence of precision. The art lies in choosing your words so calmly, so intentionally that they become disarming. Emotional people thrive on chaos, but they cannot handle composure. When you speak from reason, you turn their noise into their own undoing. I remember a woman at a workplace who constantly created drama to gain sympathy. Every minor disagreement became a public scene. People walked on eggshells around her. One afternoon, she confronted me with tears and accusations over something imagined. Everyone expected the same pattern: defense, argument, escalation. Instead, I simply said, "I understand that's how you feel," and I stopped there. No justification, no defense, just calm acknowledgement. The silence after that sentence was almost physical. She blinked, confused, realizing the energy she threw out wasn't being returned. Within seconds, the fire burned out on its own. That's when I understood. You can't fight emotion with logic, but you can redirect it with control. Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but the opinions we attach to them. The same applies to conflict. It's not what they say, but what we choose to believe about it. Emotional people live in reaction loops. They depend on your participation to keep the illusion alive. When you refuse to engage, when you stay grounded and centered, they lose their rhythm. They're forced to sit in their own echo. It's uncomfortable for them, but it's liberating for you. The Stoic approach is not about domination or cold indifference. It's about using composure as direction. When someone comes at you with rage, don't try to control their emotions. Control the energy of the moment. Lower your tone. Slow your words. Look them in the eye, not as an opponent, but as a mirror. The calmer you become, the more irrational their outburst appears. This isn't manipulation, it's mastery of self. Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is more hurtful to us than to the one who provokes it." Every time you keep your calm, you prove this true. There's deep strength in refusing to wrestle in mud. When someone throws emotion at you, let it pass through you like wind through open hands. The less resistance, the less damage. What you're practicing is not avoidance, it's redirection. You're guiding the storm around you, not letting it take root within you. That's what Stoics meant by living in accordance with nature, to flow rather than fight, to observe rather than absorb. In this quiet art of redirection, you begin to see the hidden beauty of calm. It's not passive, it's tactical. It's the discipline of shaping chaos without letting it shape you. You learn that every emotional attack is just a wave trying to find something solid to crash against. When you give it nothing, it breaks itself. So when they try to provoke, don't meet them halfway. Step aside. When they shout, speak softer. When they accuse, stand still. Let reason lead the dance, not reaction. Because the moment you stop fighting for control and start directing it, you've already changed the outcome. And once you understand how to redirect others, the next step becomes even harder, learning how to guard your own energy from ever being drained again. That's where we move next. At this stage, the real test begins, not when someone shouts in your face, but when the world quietly drains your energy piece by piece. The endless demands, the subtle manipulations, the constant noise of other people's emotions pulling you in. You wake up tired, not from lack of sleep, but from being pulled in 100 directions that aren't yours. This is where many fall, not in the storm, but in the slow erosion of their boundaries. And this is where the Stoic learns to guard their energy like a fortress built on sacred ground. Imagine your mind as a citadel. Within its walls lies your peace, your focus, your reason, everything the world tries to breach. But most people leave their gates wide open. They let every complaint, every judgment, every demand march right in. They confuse kindness with access, availability with virtue. And soon, they're not living, they're reacting, constantly invaded by the emotions of others. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. To guard your energy is to finally realize what belongs to you and what does not. I once met a man whose calm presence seemed unbreakable. People came to him with problems, with anger, with noise, and he listened, but something about him felt different. He never absorbed what they carried. He could sit in the middle of chaos and remain untouched. I asked him once how he did it. He smiled and said, "I stopped trying to fix people who don't want peace. I simply refuse to join their war." That sentence stayed with me. It was the purest form of Stoic wisdom, compassion without entanglement, empathy without surrender. Seneca said, "Associate with those who make you better." Guarding your energy is not isolation, it's discernment. It's choosing where your attention flows, because wherever attention goes, energy follows. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. Not every conversation deserves your response, and not every conflict deserves your effort. You start to realize that silence is not withdrawal, it's preservation. The fewer battles you fight that don't matter, the more power you have for the ones that do. The world will test this constantly. There will always be people who bait you with guilt, who disguise control as care, who drain you in the name of connection. But the Stoic draws a quiet line and keeps it sacred. You don't owe anyone your peace. You can care without carrying, listen without losing yourself, help without hollowing out your spirit. When you learn that, life becomes lighter. You begin to live with intention instead of obligation. To guard your energy means to recognize that your inner stillness is not negotiable. It is not a luxury, it is survival. Each day you decide who enters your mind, who touches your calm, who deserves your time. That's not arrogance, that's wisdom. Because energy is the currency of your life. Spend it on noise and you go broke. Spend it on purpose and you grow rich in peace. Epictetus once said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." Guarding your energy is the act of reclaiming control over what truly matters, your state of being. It's the invisible discipline that keeps your soul steady even when the world trembles. So, let them talk. Let them rage. Let them misunderstand. You have nothing to prove and nothing to defend. Protect your calm like still water, clear, deep, and unmoved by passing winds. Because when your energy is guarded, your presence becomes power itself. And once you've learned to protect your energy, there's only one lesson left, the kind of strength that no one can imitate, the quiet dignity that ends every battle before it begins. That's where we go next. Entering the final chapter, everything comes down to this: dignity, the quiet kind that doesn't need an audience, the strength that doesn't announce itself. After all the storms, the provocations, the noise, this is where the Stoic stands unshaken. You've learned to pause, to redirect, to guard your energy. But now, the question is no longer how to defend yourself. It's how to live in such a way that nothing can touch your peace, not praise, not insult, not chaos. This is the summit of calm, the stillness that can't be faked. Imagine someone trying to provoke you again. They use the same tactics, the tone, the words, the mockery, but this time something's different. You don't feel the familiar rush of anger or the need to prove anything. You simply look at them, not with contempt, but with quiet understanding. They no longer pull you into their world because you've outgrown it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you have assumed these names, good, modest, truthful, rational, take care that you do not change them, and if you should lose them, quickly return." That's what dignity is, the discipline of staying true to yourself, even when the world tries to drag you elsewhere. I once saw a mentor face public humiliation. A younger man interrupted him during a speech, calling him outdated, irrelevant, unnecessary. The room froze. Everyone expected retaliation, but he didn't flinch. He smiled gently and said, "Perhaps you're right." Then he returned to his point, as if nothing had happened. The silence that followed was unforgettable. The arrogance of the young man shriveled under the weight of that calm. Afterward, the mentor said to me, "Power doesn't need to shout. It only needs to stand." That moment changed how I saw respect. It isn't something you demand. It's something you embody. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more powerful than he who has himself in his own power." Dignity begins there. It's not about pride or image. It's about inner order. When you stop seeking control over others, you finally gain control over yourself. The world worships the loud, the bold, the dramatic. But true command is silent. It's the man who can listen without needing to win, who can walk away without needing the last word. That's the strength emotional people fear most. The kind that can't be provoked because it's anchored in virtue, not vanity. To live with dignity is to move through the world like water, calm, patient, unstoppable. You don't push, you flow. You don't react, you respond. You don't chase validation because your worth isn't up for debate. And when you start living this way, you realize something profound. No one can take anything from you that truly matters. The insults, the lies, the disrespect, they belong to the one who gives them, not to you. As Epictetus said, if someone speaks ill of you, live so that none will believe him. That is the ultimate Stoic revenge, living so impeccably calm that slander collapses in your shadow. In the end, emotional people lose power, not because you defeated them, but because you refuse to play. Their fire dies in the absence of fuel. Their noise fades when it's met with stillness. You've risen above the game entirely. What once triggered you now teaches you. What once offended you now amuses you. And what once drained you now reminds you of your own restraint. That's the transformation, from reactivity to mastery, from turbulence to timeless calm. So when you walk away, not in defeat, but in wisdom, remember, mastery of self is the only victory that lasts. When nothing outside can disturb your peace, you begin to understand what real strength feels like. It is not the power to control others, but the quiet command of your own mind. That is the essence of Stoic calm, the ability to remain steady while the world shakes, to move with clarity when others lose themselves to emotion. Through these 7 rules, you've learned how to see through manipulation, how to separate truth from feeling, how to pause before reacting, and how to protect your inner fortress. You've learned that silence can be louder than argument, that patience can be more powerful than pride, and that dignity is the truest mark of strength. But calm is not a place you arrive at once. It's a practice you return to every day. Life will always test you. Someone will challenge your boundaries, question your worth, or try to pull you into their storm. Yet that is where your discipline begins. When they raise their voice, you breathe. When they provoke, you observe. When they push for reaction, you stay still. The Stoic wins not through aggression, but through composure. Control is never loud. It's found in restraint, in stillness, in the quiet refusal to be moved by chaos. Peace is not permanent. It is earned moment by moment. Every time you choose not to mirror someone's anger, you strengthen your mind. Every time you pause before replying, you teach your emotions who's in charge. Every time you walk away from conflict without resentment, you rise above it. Calm is not weakness. It is mastery. It is proof that your emotions serve you, not the other way around. And when you stumble, as everyone sometimes does, remember the words of Marcus Aurelius. Each day offers another chance to practice virtue. The Stoics never sought perfection, only progress. What matters most is not that you never lose your peace, but that you return to it faster each time. Growth is quiet. Strength is patient. If this message speaks to you, carry it into your next test. Let it remind you that calm is not surrender, but control shaped by wisdom. And if you wish to keep growing in strength and stillness, subscribe and walk with others on this path of clarity and inner power. Now, share your reminder below. Just 2 or 3 words that center you today. Write something like, "Stay calm." Let it be your quiet promise to yourself. Because storms will never stop, but you can always choose to remain still within them. Stay patient. Stay grounded. Stay calm.